Is there a
I
motion?
asked you about adding me on other business.
Yeah, just, but you just want to
But
make a
that-
comment.
that's a
Yeah, it's
comment.
not an action item.
No.
Right, okay. So,
Move to approve.
all right,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then first item is the minutes from the March 25th, 2025 finance.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion second, open for discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, public comment. Didn't get to circulate, but anybody got an item they particularly want to speak on? Okay, I don't see or hear nobody. We'll move on. So we're ready for our monthly business. So under new business, our solid waste. You've been on my mind all day.
Then they wrote a song about it.
Probably.
Not solid waste.
Elvis.
We have all of the container boxes from our grant have been delivered to each one of the respective centers. You can't miss them. They are bright blue. So we're really glad to have those. And we did find out too yesterday that the compactor and receiver box will be delivered on this Thursday. So it will also be installed. And then as soon as the state inspects all that, then we can start using those to utilize and try and get more recycled materials in. All of our information for our annual progress report on our site has been turned in. The state will include tonnage from national companies that are located in Shelbyville, Walmart, Lowe's, Kroger, Dollar General, TSC, McDonald's. But our tonnage so far should be put us past the 25% reduction needed to satisfy the state on diverted tonnage from the landfills. We are scheduling our suits training next month for all the center attendants. This is the mandatory training required by the state. And Vanessa and I attended a meeting at South Central Development District on the 9th to learn more about future grants that could be available to us. And hopefully the money will be available for new buildings in the future. All of our attendant buildings are in dire need of repair and replacement, as they have been there since the centers were open, so nearly 30 years. State quarterly money for tires should be deposited in April. This is the dollar that the county receives from the sale of new tires that helps offset the expense of recycling. And the monthly and quarterly reports are attached. For March, our recycling revenue was $9,301.26. We had 76.41 tons come in. Disposal of landfill to the landfill was $36,178.63, 1,005 tons, 0.8. For the annual progress report, we had 19,204.95 tons. That was up 170 tons from last year. And the diverted tons was up 2,719 for a total of 27,931. And that's basically Tyson's and Shovel Power, their sludge stuff that is deposited on grounds. Recycling revenue for the quarter, January, February, March, is a total of $26,651.65. And savings from not having to take these materials, some of these materials to the landfill, was $6,158.06. Any questions on anything?
Is the paper recycling back at Normandy or Trace and Bell Buckle yet? Or is
I'm sorry.
newspaper recycling back at Normandy?
It will be, but we can't use those boxes until they're inspected. We supposedly have like 15 days for them to come down and inspect them. So just as soon as they come, which I'm hoping will be next week, they're trying to wait until we get the compactor in so they can inspect all of it at one time.
Okay.
And then we can start using them. But it will be, the box is there.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, all the boxes are in.
Thanks, Donnie.
All those centers, like, we had to block them off because we took, per the regulations of the grant that we got, we can't put them in operation. We're not supposed to have an operation or they'll do away,
Yeah.
you know.
Perfect. Hey, we're closer than we were.
Yep.
Days ahead. Grateful for the grant.
Yep.
All right. If no other questions, we'll move on to human resources.
For this month, report, we had 8 onboard talent and recruitment hires that came through the office, and we had 6 that left our organization, and none of those were retirees. In our job postings that are available on different social media platforms as well as the county website, we always leave up our corrections officer opportunities. Juvenile detention, we have filled that one. Since this report was completed, paramedic, full and part-time opportunities there. We are looking for assistant bookkeeper to finance. That is a future retiree position, so that's not a new position. Trustee's office, we just took applications for the deputy clerk, number 3, like a 3 position there. So we just closed those, and Tanya will be doing the interview process on those. We're looking for a sheriff's deputy full-time and dispatcher communications that's also on there. We did fill some of our corrections positions, EMS paramedic full-time, the juvenile detention, and the PHOA actually started yesterday. So in the way of ongoing activities and projects that I've been working on, I am looking to do the FMLA and the online onboard process for our departments to kind of help streamline that opportunity. So much of what I do and how I communicate with a lot of our organizations is through our online portals. So I want to be able to offer that and find a balance between making it personal and still being available to employees that need to ask questions and need that resource, but also making it accommodating if they need to do something online, especially with medical, because sometimes they're just not where they can or they feel like being able to come into the office. And so working with the departments to kind of better mainstream and update an opportunity there. So that's something that's going to be forthcoming. Bedford County has been selected to participate in the Department of Labor Occupational's requirement study. I participated in a survey that was voluntary last year. They reached out to me and let me know that we have been selected for that study. So that's something I will be working with the Department of Labor on. And then I am also updating our Title VI that I will have to deploy out to all elected official offices, as well as department director offices, due to the presidential order that updated some of the language and requirements in our Title VI federally. And there's a domino effect to that. So getting out new notices on the Title VI, I have to do that. But the online training that we do yearly, those videos have to be updated as well. So those are things that are keeping me busy alongside of professional development training opportunities that I have listed. Any questions?
Thank you for your report. Anybody got?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I believe next is archives.
Well, in the last few months, we've been working about as usual with requests from patrons, research patrons mostly. We continue to be able to help with more recent records for IDs, and it's always been very nice to be able to help those folks. Most of those folks don't remember whether they got their divorce in Bedford County or Rutherford County or Coffee, so so we have to help them where the best location might be. We had one the other day that just knew it was Bedford, but they actually lived right on the line. You know how it goes. Their address was Bedford, but their divorce was over in Rutherford. So anyways, that's the way it goes. We're glad that brings me to mind that we are regularly reaching out to our other archives in our process. And we talked recently to Robertson County up in the north, and they've been in operation a very long time, since the late 1980s. But we're about on the same par for buildings and work in construction and renovating buildings. And then recently, last few days, I've talked to Cannon County Archives, and they're starting all over from scratch. And so they have new facilities in their old hospital. It's a smaller building. You know, Woodbury's a lot smaller than we ever were. And so they're just now getting restarted. And so it's nice to get to talk to your counterparts across the counties and see what everybody's doing. And but we're glad to be able to reach out to those folks and have them call us as well. In fact, I hope the gentleman in Cannon County will come and tour and see what we're doing. We have revived our volunteers. All our volunteers are coming, and so that helps us a great deal. And Tennessee Achieves folks, as well as interested history people. And so that really helps us a great deal, and we appreciate that. So everything else is about as usual. Do you have any questions? Anything?
No, thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, our owner rep. I believe you got the report in your packet.
We have a pretty long report, so if you have any questions on it, I can answer them specifically. I would like to report, over the last 60 days, we've been working on the juvenile surplus building, and I'm happy to report that we are below the budget number that the Finance Committee approved, and we hope to be going to contract at the end of May.
Deal. What about lighting? I know that some of that was conversation.
So
among
we have,
folks.
community lighting is completed at all their sports plexes, and training has been done, with all the coaches and Sam. Training was done today for the softball and soccer, fields at Cascade. Football field has started, and baseball field will start as soon as the district tournament is over. The Cascade concession at the football and baseball field is about 85% complete. We finished pouring all the concrete between the rain. The softball and soccer Cascade concession is getting a framing inspection tomorrow, hopefully. And we will insulate and start sheetrocking this week. And the community concession stand is bricked and sheetrocked, and we'll start painting on it this week.
Sound like you got exciting things happening down there.
A lot of
Yep.
great things.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
What about the gun range? Is it site evaluation?
I'm
Has
sorry?
begun- The gun range.
So the gun range, the gun range that they propose will not work. We don't have enough distance between the building and the road for deliveries. So Kevin is supposed to be getting me some new information on what we can reduce it to. They are required to have a certain yardage to be able to get signed off for firearms training. So we're working through that process. Also, the jail received a $80,000 grant for the G-Pod that we called the Shark Bite that we added back. And we're getting a meeting with engineers Friday for mechanical and electrical to put in there so they can use it for a training room.
Jeff, if you don't mind, when we had our budget meetings, this first time I brought up on the highway budget, where we're looking at that building is probably fixing to fall down or catch on fire.
Yeah,
or
so
something.
the historic building that Mark worked out of, built during the Civil War, we've met on it a couple of times. We met with the engineer yesterday, walked through the building. We're proposing a 60 by 120 foot building and raising it so water doesn't run through the middle of it when it rains hard, and bringing the
Through the top.
bathroom current where it doesn't have the half moon on the door when you walk in it, and a parking area in the back for all the equipment that's going to be 48 by 100. So we've started that process to give Mark a budget. It's greatly needed. That's a pretty rough building.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely.
It's not where you want to run for a storm shelter, I promise.
It's outlived its
You run out
functional
of it when a storm
life,
comes in,
hasn't
and
it?
you stay dry if you're outside and you can't inside.
So I would report on the vestibules. We have 9 vestibule security enhancements that we're doing for the schools. The state fire marshal, in their wisdom, has decided they want those individually submitted instead of all at one time, which means that's 9 weeks process that we deal with the state fire marshal. We started submitting those. So it will be middle of July before we get contract signed.
So there'll be construction when school's going on, probably?
Yes, but we're hoping most of those are going to be 2 and 3 day processes, and we have double entrances. Shovel High School will be the longest, so we'll probably try to do it during horse show break.
Well, they're greatly needed, so.
Chairman,
Yeah, please.
would you, I just want to recognize Jeff for what he did with Cascade recently. We were thinking it was going to be a $500,000 hit for the school system.
We've lost 500,000+ gallons of water through Bell Buckle Water, and an agreement was signed before Dr. Garrett was involved that no buildings would be built at Cascade without Bell Buckle's approval, and that's kind of what got me involved in the process. But the original pump that was put in to get water to the high school was not installed correctly, and the pump has been leaking since it was installed, and it's about 500,000 gallons of water. We got them to waive that fee as long as we fix it in the next 60 days. So we've ordered the parts. The only place to get them is in New York. So we've gotten those coming, and we've got somebody that will install it for us. We also are going to have to put in about 700 feet of sewer in front of the middle school because they have about 17 breaks in the sewer line. So they've given us through the end of the summer to get that done. Once that's all completed, Bell Buckle will take over the water in the sewer line. And we also had them put in a new PRV valve in front of the middle school at their expense because of the water pressure issues we were having.
And I appreciate him because we thought we were going to have to buy a new pump, but he did research and found out it was a warranty issue. So I just wanted
Right.
to tell you how much I appreciated that.
Perfect. Working together. I like that.
Soil conservation wing,
So we have got one more bid to get in.
One more
Lori
bid.
said I needed 3 bids, so, you know, I do what Lori tells me.
That's
So we've gotten 2.
Smart.
I've got one more coming in tomorrow, and
Perfect.
so we'll be able to
Awesome.
get that released.
Now, we would expect in the end to be able to do the gun range in some capacity, just probably not their original design or hopes, correct?
Correct.
Right. So,
Same location, just shorter distance.
is that to the right or the left? Of the-
It's straight out the back of the,
straight out the back.
Mhm.
on past the
across from the maintenance building.
garden. I see. Okay.
any other questions? A lot of things going on,
Yeah.
and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right. We're ready for our monthly reports.
So you've got a monthly financial report. I don't have anything unusual to report because we've dealt with some of it in a budget amendment that's followed. So we're tracking according to the budget. You have an analysis of tax collections, and I did want to go over that. Property tax, we have received 1.1 million more than last year at the same time. That doesn't mean that we didn't budget the increase. It just means it's the difference of the 2 years. So I want to point that out. The prior year collections are 54,000 ahead of the same time last year. Page 2 is clerk and master collections are 7,200 ahead of the same time last year. Sales tax collections are 1,014,000 above the same time last year. And the last page is mineral severance, and we've only got 2 quarters in, and I'm sure that's going to go up with all these trucks driving down Midland Road at 231.
We hope so.
41A.
Yeah, 41A, and also 437, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the report on the property tax collections. And you have one more report that shows expenses. Anything in red is above the average, and the average is 75%. And like I said, some of those will be dealt with in budget amendments if they're over. And that's my report.
Any comments or questions? Are we hearing from the state about predictions about sales tax going forward? Because we've enjoyed some increases beyond what we maybe were expecting, but we also realize now that if the economy slows, the sales tax immediately is affected, right?
Right. I haven't heard anything from the state, but we're probably going, when we do the budget itself and predict sales tax, if the tariffs go into effect and people start not buying, then we're going to see a drop in sales tax. So we may not be able to budget the increases we have in the past because of that. So that's something we are considering in the budget process.
Okay. Other reports, so EMS?
I don't have a lot to report in addition to the report that you guys already have. We're in the middle of several different projects right now with our advanced EMT class, being in the middle of class there. Our legislation still moving forward. We're waiting to see what the governor's going to do in the final days of his budget. And that's all I've really got, so if anybody has any questions.
Should we say something about the attorney? Okay, right. All right. Is there any questions or comments for EMS? All right, thank you. Now, do I need to approve all the reports, or do you want to do before we do? Okay. All right. So up next then is quarterly reports.
You got a quarterly financial report. It's the same information, just summarized in the quarter ending March 31st that you saw in the monthly report. And this does need to go to the commission.
All right, so we need a motion to approve reports with the quarterly going to the commission.
Move the approve.
Second.
All right, motion second open for any clarifications. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so I think we're ready for Board of Education Amendment number 3.
Okay, this amendment, if you'll turn to page 1, you'll see a summary of the revenue items. We have an AP access grant of $489. We had some state TISA outcomes allocation money. We had to adjust some state funds, and then we had some refunds and reimbursements included. We took a small amount of $8,500 from fund balance. And if you'll flip the page to page 2 and 3, you will see where that is spread through the budget as far as the expenditure side. And we did have some department transfers that went between departments.
We need a motion to send this to the commission.
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion second. Any further clarification?
I just wanted you to notice that $600 and something thousand we got in outcomes money. That's because we did well on our tests. Just
Fantastic.
had to point that out.
Absolutely, that's important. That's fantastic. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're ready for county budget amendment number 6.
Okay, the first part is the general fund. On page 1, you will see the revenue side. We had a CDBG grant, contributions, some refunds and reimbursements, and we had some additional revenue of $48,000. Page 2 and 3 show the amounts that were put through the budget as far as expenditures, and we did have some department transfers. Now, if you go over to the blue page, you will see the highway department had a couple of amendments. We had refunds and reimbursements and a department transfer. So that basically is the highway portion. And the last part is the county capital projects. We had a reimbursement from the state. This relates to the Motorola project. The state, we increased it to cover this additional amount, and then the state turned around and reimbursed us. So it's kind of a wash, but we have to budget that.
All right,
So that's my report.
so we need a motion to approve and send the budget amendment to the commission.
So move.
All right,
Second.
motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And then next is financial management policies and procedure manual revision.
We were doing an update on the policy and procedures for Financial Management Committee, and I'll just go through this real quick. We took out the road board where that was mentioned in the policy, and also in the second section, we changed year end to 1 year because it talks about contracts being approved that extend beyond year end. Well, if you did it in May, then you'd have to approve it for a month. So we changed it to 1 year. The next section is purchasing exceeding $25,000. We only have, we have a 3 days that we have to run it in the paper for construction projects, and we changed it for anything else to 1 day because we have a weekly paper. And it was causing our projects to go in a long time before we could actually get bids in. So the last section is the accounting policies for surplus equipment. We had an item come up, this is about trade-in. We can't allow trade-ins, but we need this policy change so we can. EMS had a trade-in of some monitors, and they were piggybacking off of a bid, and we cannot do a trade-in unless, if their bid specifies they can, then this allows us to do that. But we can get more benefit out of a trade-in than we can selling it on Gov Deals, because we may get $1 for a monitor, and we could get a lot more money on a trade-in.
Yep.
But this applies to all departments that will be able to use this, and the comptroller suggested that we make this change, and they actually helped us with the wording.
All right, and that page should be in your packet, and it shows red where the changes were in regards to that. So it's,
This committee's the only one that has to approve this, right?
I would send it to the commission so that they can at least spread it on their minutes. and it goes to the
Just
county.
send-
Spread it on the minutes. This committee approves it, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so moved.
So just send it to the commission to be spread on the minutes? or-
Spread on the minutes.
Second.
All right, motion second. We're open for any further clarification, comments, questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, up next, Register of Deeds Office has some write-off cleanups here.
Johnny Reed has brought this to us because they've had some debts that have been on the books for 20 years, and they need to write it off. And this will allow them to write it off, and this does need to go to the commission also.
So we need a motion to send it to the commission.
Motion.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then, let's see. Board of Education surplus. What do we need to do here?
Move to approve.
Move to approve, all right,
Second.
second. All right, motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then, EMS surplus property. So this falls in line with the policy change.
Move to approve,
Well,
send on.
This one just it's part of the policy change. This is the monitors he's declaring surplus so that we can proceed then
Yeah.
with the trade-in.
Okay.
But the approval is at the Financial Management Committee level, or does it go to the
Commission.
goes to commission? Okay. All right, so we had a motion and a second, right? Who was the second? Scott, or you?
That was motion.
All right,
Scott
Linda
seconded.
was motion, Scott was second. Everybody understand what we're doing here?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're covering ground, all right? Other business, Commissioner Yaki.
I just wanted to clarify something that was brought up at Rules and Legislation, Legislative Committee, a month or so ago, and I didn't have the numbers in my head, so I didn't say anything, but it was relative to the fact that Finance has added 1 million employees, and so I just wanted to clarify. So I had Robert run off from 2013-14 up to now, which would be 10 years. And also the budget numbers. So if you look at the budget numbers, I'm sorry, pass those across.
That's all right. Me and you can share, Robert.
I can share.
That's all right.
And so if you look at the budget numbers from 13-14 as almost 89 million to now, which is almost 76 million, so it's twice the amount of budget. And as you scan across the years, nothing changes 10 employees all the way across to 21-22, which is when it shows under finance, but is not really a finance employee. Juan's position part-time in surplus, in dealing with the surplus. So it's really not a finance employee, but he is supervised by Robert, which should be because of the surplus. And then in 22-23, another position was added because of the ESSER funds and COVID. That position is the Board of Education's problem, but it comes under finance and shows as an employee, but it is not a finance person. The only position that was added was last year. We added a new office position after 10 years. The only position that was added in 10 years into the finance team. There was also a school bookkeeper's supervisor, but that is reimbursed with Board of Education. So depending on how you look at it, but when it comes down to it, over the course of 10 years, Finance Department has added one employee, not discounting Juan's position, which is not a finance. And I just wanted to clarify that, and Lori, I would like that all to be reflected within the minutes, please.
All right, any other business? Any comments from the committee here? All right, announcements? Anybody got anything particular we need to announce? We did the first round of hearing from our nonprofits today, and our department's putting forward the opportunity to speak to us about what they were requesting in their budgets. Now this group will take that information and study it and come up with some strategies. We're waiting on the finance department to help us figure out what the penny's going to be worth, what the state's going to tell us about insurance premiums, what sales tax projections are going to be, what COLA looks like for the state of Tennessee. So there's some moving parts here that it'd be difficult for us to know really what we have to work with till we have a little bit more of that information. But this certainly gives everybody the opportunity to start looking at what the requests from the departments were. Now, some of the things that are not in there that I'm hoping to get to you between now and then as well, just for your information, is there's a lot of unfunded liabilities that the county has that don't show up in regular operating budgets, that if they fail or whenever they present, they have to be covered by the system. So there has to be some resiliency in what we do. Examples, even here in this facility, I think there's 15 HVAC units, and the average age unit on the roof is 20 years old or something. So we just heard from Animal Control today talking about the age of their units. There's other things besides just HVAC. You've got roofs, you've got roof needs. I know the health department's here and was working on their roof situation. That's a real need. So there's a lot of things that don't necessarily show up in the budget process, but there's still liabilities at the end of the day that the county has to deal with. So we're trying to get that more in a document for you to, just for your information, not necessarily that it has to show up in this budget, but we have to be prepared to deal with those failures till we can fully transition to a preventive maintenance program. And we've been working on that for several years, where the impact of that's not as great. The same thing about vehicle rotations, kennels, all the things that we've been talking about in the budget process. So it's even more complex than even what we see today from the direct request from the departments. You're an example of that down there in the highways with that need that you have. That's a critical need that maybe doesn't show up in your operating budget, but very much is a part of your operation and will have to be dealt with. Exactly. So we've got to continue to know and understand that schools has those outliers all the time in what you're doing. And so we're no exception to that. So we continue to try to look and figure out how to get our arms around that, make sure everybody can see the things that we could at least predict, so that we know that we have a strategy for how we work through it going forward. And the economy and tariffs are going to have, and grant clawbacks are going to impact us some kind of way. I don't think anybody sitting here at the table today knows exactly what the magnitude of that is. But so there's a lot of moving parts and pieces. It's not just paper and pencil, so to speak, today and what we've done. So thank you guys for stepping up and being involved in that process. And we'll figure it out, but there are some tough decisions to be made going forward for sure.
And we'll have at least a study session or so. And other question I have is, Robert, is there a time of the day for people to call you with questions that they may just run across as they study the budget? I mean, is there a better time, like 3 to 4, or?
Anytime 8 to 4. If we don't answer, leave a message. We'll call you back.
Okay, perfect. So, and that's open to anybody.
Mhm.
And I really wish they'd call Robert rather than the department head. Don't you? Isn't that a better?
Yeah, that would be most correct, is to first find out where we're at with the structure. Then if we need that detail beyond that, then we typically exercise. I mean, the standard procedure would be to contact the mayor's office. The departments operate under the executive branch, and then the mayor's office would direct that appropriately. But certainly if you have an opportunity to be face-to-face with our folks, they're happy to engage with you in a reasonable manner regarding whatever questions you'd have.
Okay.
Any other comments or
adjourn.
questions? All right, motion adjourned. I'm sure we got a second.
Is this
for
the
that.
last time we come in here today?
Today, I hope.